Hey everybody, and we're live again today. I want to talk about what happened in Minneapolis, obviously, but I want to preface it this way because the left is so predictable, and they're so entrenched in their radical, rabid ideology that there are always carryovers. And I want to remind you of the Obama years. I want to pain you with the Obama. I know we're past it. We've moved on past that guy, the demon himself, but we got to talk about Barack Obama. Remember under the Barack Hussein Obama, the Christian, his administration. Remember, do you know what his golden rule was? This may just be a thing that I came up with, but Obama's golden rule was that you remember this every time, anytime there was an obvious act of terrorism, right? Radical Islamist terrorism, a terrorist attack carried out in America, and there were many, many examples. Um, he would always make sure that he separated, obviously, the religion from the radical Islamist terrorists who said they did it because of religion. And he would always, after a terrorist attack, he always made sure this was the golden rule to defend Islam. And this is why I say, too, Barack Hussein Obama was America's first Muslim president. I mean, he claimed to be a Christian. That's not my point. My point is he viewed his role and responsibility as president as being some kind of the Billy Graham of Islam. He didn't do this for any other religion, but he did it specifically for Islam. And what you're seeing after this horrific slaughter in Minneapolis is very similar because, this is not an isolated incident in terms of the obvious reasons that this took place. And look, let me say this too. When you talk about radical Islam, for example, under the Obama years, I mean, it was proliferating because part of the reason it was proliferating is because he was incapable, because of his own worldview, of addressing the problem, right? He'd say things like, you can't blame the many for the acts of the few. Now, this didn't apply to incidents where, white police were involved in physical violence, with blacks, whether it was, the white cop's fault or it was, the black individual's fault. It didn't matter, but he would apply that to the, systematic racism. So they don't even apply the same principle to these things because, of course, they're radical ideologues. But to acknowledge, let me do it this way. I want to stick with this analogy because I want to drive this home. I think it will be beneficial and helpful for our understanding. But let's go back to Barack Obama, and everyone's familiar with how he reacted to Islam and terrorist events. He would downplay it, obviously, and he'd insist that Islam was peaceful and so on and so forth. Pit bulls. I'm sorry if some of you love pit bulls. My father-in-law has a pit bull, very sweet, wonderful pit bull. But pit bulls are one of many, many breeds of dog, and they are disproportionately, responsible for the majority of maulings and violence. That's a matter of fact. I mean, almost all episodes of violent attacks from dogs involve pit bulls, and despite them not being the only dog breed out there. And so, if you're going to point out that there's something with the pit bull breed, whether it's temperament or whatever it is, breeding, there's something about this dog that makes it more dangerous than other dogs. Now, is that saying that every single pit bull that lives on this earth is violent? No, but it's acknowledging reality, which is there is something in pit bulls that makes them more dangerous and more inclined to maul, attack, and kill children than other dogs. Your Chihuahua's not doing it. Other big dogs, golden retrievers, aren't doing it. So anyway, that's the point here. And that's what makes me sick to my stomach with this, is that we're not actually able to address and fix anything in this country because that's not the intention of the left. They're not interested at all in preventing violence. Well, let me be clear. We're all Americans, most of us. And I don't, there are plenty of libs out there who are good people. I mean, they're misguided, they're indoctrinated. So there are plenty of liberals, plenty of Republicans, plenty of Americans across the spectrum that don't want to see what happened on flipping the other day happen. A bunch of innocent kids be shot and killed while at school, at mass. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see what happened in Nashville, okay? And what irks me is I am serious about the problem. You people out there, yes, I'm talking like you people out there that every time this happens, you say, it's the guns, you're a problem. Because you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you're not a serious person in terms of solving these problems. It's not the freaking guns. It's not the guns. We have a moral crisis in America, and that's number one. And you know who's most responsible for these shootings? And I mean this seriously. It is Democrats. This particular trans shooter, had, that he hated Trump on his gun. Who is it in this country that incites hatred 24/7, every day, 365 days a year? It's the media, the people that push Trump-Russia collusion, the people that won't give up these hoaxes. And what do you think the left's response would be if this was some, Christian nationalist? Or just a Christian that had, I hate Barack Obama. I mean, I don't know who they hate right now, but, I hate Democrats. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen just like if you look at terrorism around the world, Islam, radical Islam, that's it. Okay? You don't have, there's no jihad from any other religion, whether it be Jew or Christian or Hindu or Buddha. It doesn't exist. There's no comparison to Islam and Sharia law and radical Islamist terrorism, extremism, whatever you want to call it around the world. It is unique. And, Democrats or Barack, they don't want to look at that. Why is that? That's weird. Why aren't Christians out there trying to name a successor to Jesus Christ and ordering us to kill all the infidels that won't convert to Christianity? Barack Obama would do this, by the way. He actually went to a prayer breakfast, national prayer breakfast, which, of course, it's a room filled with Christians. And he actually said, Christians have done this throughout history, too. But no, they haven't. It's not even remotely that he tried to compare it to the Crusades, which were territory wars. I mean, that was pretty much akin to what nations do over Jerusalem, the right, to have Jerusalem. So anyway, it just blows my mind. I've got a lot of clips I want to play. I want to get into Cracker Barrel in a little bit. There's some lessons there. And I can tell you, too, because I used to work for a big company, Marc Jacobs in fashion. And I went through something similar with a CEO that took over there. So I want to give you some insight into what happened with Marc Jacobs and how it can be applied to all these things. These CEO class, it's locusts. These people are making, multi-million dollars a year, and they are some of the dumbest people. I mean, these CEOs in many cases, not all cases, the CEOs that really are amazing people are the ones that actually start the companies. Not the people like this who just go from company to company, destroy it, and get hired somewhere else. But I'll get into that in a minute. I want to stick with this. We got John Bolton coming up. I mean, the irony there. This guy on TV, we got to get Donald Trump because he's got classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and now we find out that he's been mishandling classified documents, and he obviously was never president of the United States. But anyway, this is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. If you're just joining me for the first time, many of you have been with me for a while. It's great to be with you today. I'm glad I was able to sit here. But I want to dig into this. This is frustrating to me. There is a wave of trans violence that is washing across the country. We saw it with Nashville last year with that manifesto shooter. And notice they're attacking schools that they went to in both cases. There are a lot of eerie similarities. They're not really eerie. They're similarities that are staring us in the face, begging us to say, hey, this is the problem. I want to just catch you up if you don't know here. So August 27th, right? 2025. That's yesterday. You had a bunch of students, children attending mass at school. And during that morning mass, 23-year-old Robin Westman, a transgender woman, a man, and a former student opened fire with a rifle, shotgun, and pistol. In under 2 minutes, 2 children were murdered, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and 17 others were wounded, including 14 kids and 3 elderly parishioners. And Westman killed this always says herself. It's not a herself, it's a freaking dude. It's a dude, okay? This is a guy. Investigators discovered notebooks, coded writings, online videos posted shortly before the massacre. The evidence showed he had carefully planned the assault, mapping out the church, writing disturbing screeds. The weapons were covered in hate-filled slogans, anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, racist, and political, like kill Donald Trump. Now, which political party promotes killing Donald Trump? Would that be the Republican Party? Would that be MAGA? Would that even be the whatever? I don't know. I'm trying to think. The libertarians out there. Everyone, this is. I'm not going to do this, by the way. I'm going to sit here, and I don't care if I take the heat. I don't care if this episode plays and people try to destroy me with it for the rest of my life. The people that would try to do that are idiots, and they're wrong. I'm going to sit here and stare you in the face and be honest about this. We cannot sit here and play this game anymore because truly our children's lives are at risk. So we know what's going on here. The Democrat Party and their hate-filled rhetoric that we have been listening to that has been just total hyperbole, hysterics, since 2016 in particular, is out of control. You know who's responsible for, these killers are being manufactured. Now, I'm going to get into the trans thing. Trans is a mental illness. That's part of the reason this is happening. It's not because they're trans per se. It's because that is a mental illness. Just like Trump derangement syndrome is a mental illness. Just like bulimia is a mental illness. I mean, tell me this. It's considered a mental illness. It's considered a bad thing if you have body dysmorphia, right? If you look in the mirror and you don't like your appearance because you're too fat, and so you resort to going to the bathroom at school during lunch and sticking your fingers down your throat to throw up your food to keep skinny, everyone agrees that's a problem. And it's based on what? Your view of yourself. A transgender person, because it's not real, looks in the mirror and they don't like their appearance either. But it's not their weight they're concerned with. It's their sex and gender, which cannot be changed. The big irony here is that you actually can get skinny if you stick your fingers down your throat and throw up every day. Bulimic can actually achieve their end. It's not healthy. It's wrong. It's horrific. I'm not encouraging it, obviously. But it can be achieved. You know what can never be achieved, though? Becoming the opposite sex, becoming the opposite gender. And the idea that people in this country would encourage, look, it's bad enough that somebody over 18 is afflicted with that type of mental illness, that they're so dissatisfied, that they're so lost, that they think that they're trapped in the wrong body. It's bad enough that it happens at 18 and people encourage it and allow it to happen. But when you're talking about children, and I live in California, right? When you're talking about children in this situation, and you are encouraging young people that don't even have fully developed brains yet to go down this mentally ill, this is what's happening. We are taking perfectly innocent children and we are robbing them of their futures. Not we, because you and I aren't lunatics, but the left, the Democrats, the people that support this in the country. You are intentionally destroying their innocence, and you're putting ideas in their head. You're basically giving a lobotomy to these children. And the Democrats have done that forever with the schools. I mean, they've done it with their ideology, the anti-American hatred. But this is the point. The whole Democrat message is one of hopelessness, of one of hatred, of one of disappointment and misery. What do you think happens to any human being? It's like, the left says, Guantanamo Bay, waterboarding. We can't waterboard these terrorists. Oh my God, this waterboarding is beyond the pale. You can't take away their Quran. That is a criminal act. And these same people torture American citizens every single day in ways that are far worse than any torture that could be exacted on some terrorist in some dark room, wherever we have, special forces or CIA or whatever it is. I mean, that's effectively what's happening. You're taking a young person, you're sticking them in a room, and you're not playing loud music like they do to torture people or whatever else, you know. You are inundating them 24/7, 365 days a year with hatred. Donald Trump is evil. He's a Russian agent. He's Hitler. Republicans are this. MAGA is this. This country's horrible. It's racist. It's awful. You should hate yourself for being American. You can never overcome the history of slavery in this country. This is a rotten place. You must feel terrible every single day. What do you think that does to a brain over time? You think it has a psychological impact? So I'm just sitting here telling you what the problem is. You know, we're not allowed to be unified as a nation. We're not allowed to have any moments where we celebrate and enjoy this rich history that we have. We're not allowed to come together. We're not allowed to ever view each other as Americans. We're never allowed to feel a sense of true community and pride because the Democrats want to chip away at that every single day for their own political ends. And that's what I have no tolerance for. Let me play some of this. I want to get, you know, look, some of the, I mean, I don't really need to apologize, but I didn't have time to edit down some of these clips. So, you know, they might be 52 seconds and it might take me a second to get there. I'd rather them be shorter, but just bear with me. You know, I hope you'll listen to these clips because these are moments that are tragic, but they also show us who the Democrats are. They show us what the problem is in America. And I may stick on this, I don't know, most of the show today because you can tell I'm riled up. I'm very passionate about this and I'm sick of it. And you know why I'm sick of it? Because I do love these kids. I have 2 young daughters. Many of you out there have children. None of us want to see this happen. And we actually know what the problem is. And the Democrats and others in this country won't allow us to address the problem. So it's them who are perpetuating the murder of children in this country because they refuse to address the issue. And the reason they refuse to address the issue is because they are the problem. Let's go Jen Psaki.
Already out there about how the shooter was trans. You're going to see narratives about how the shooter appeared to be anti-Trump and anti-Semitic and clearly was in the midst of a mental health crisis. There's no question about that.
Let me just pause there for a second. I actually couldn't hear the beginning of the audio. I hope that all of you heard it. Just put a note on there and let me know if you heard the beginning of that or not. You're going to hear reports out there that this killer was transgender, that this killer had, you know, F Trump or whatever it was on their gun. That this, in other words, you're going to hear the facts. And God forbid you hear the facts and draw the obvious conclusions. Let me go back to a story from the Obama years. You know, it wasn't the first act of terrorism. It was the second. And it was at Fort Hood. Now, there have been a couple shootings there, but let me refresh your memory with this one. Fort Hood, you had a Muslim member of the Army who was a psychiatrist. And where they have like a recruitment center, I think it was, he went in armed with 2 handguns and he jumped on the table and he yelled, "Allahu Akbar," before opening fire on other soldiers present. And he killed a lot of people. He injured a lot more. Now, it was reported at the time by the people that witnessed it, that were in the room, that he shouted Allahu Akbar. Now, you know, for the Democrats out there and people on the left, you may not know this. You know, this may be like really shocking news to you, but, you know, Allahu Akbar, when that's being shouted before an individual starts shooting people that aren't, you know, Muslims, that's a pretty good indicator that that person is a radical Islamist terrorist. Doesn't leave a lot of room for confusion or speculation. So that's what took place. And what we found out about that case, of course, was the FBI had been actually monitoring his communications for a long time because he was in touch with somebody who was shortly after put on the kill list. It was an American Muslim imam who eventually joined Al-Qaeda and was Al-Qaeda's biggest recruiter, English-speaking recruiter. And this guy, the Muslim that carried out the attack, I forget the names, unfortunately, but he'd been communicating with him for over a year. And the FBI had been monitoring these communications. And he even at one point suggested and was asking and probing this Al-Qaeda operative, hey, when is it appropriate? Is it appropriate to, kill my soldiers, if they're, fighting against, Islam, whatever it was, something like that. Anyway, the point is it was unmistakable that this was a groomed, radical Islamist terrorist, and that was the act. Well, this particular act, Obama buried. He labeled it workplace violence, and he stuck with that, the whole time. Because he wanted to bury, he didn't want there to be an association between Islam and everything else. So, here you have another example. These, coded writings, kill Donald Trump, anti-Semitic, anti-Catholic. Where is all of that coming from? Anti-Catholic, anti-Semitism, all of it. These types of mentalities are similar if you look at across the board at these many people who carry out these attacks. But I want to tell you about this Robin Westman, okay? So Robin Westman was born Robert Paul Westman in 2002. Identified as transgender and legally changed his name in 2020. The process wasn't done alone. Robert's mother, Mary Grace Westman, filed the petition herself, affirming to the court that her child identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Mary Grace, the mother who was deeply tied to the Annunciation Catholic community, she had worked there for years as an administrative assistant and parish secretary, and she even appeared on lists of donors who financially supported the school. Colleagues remembered her as a steady presence in the office before her retirement in 2021. Or you just keep, like a sponge, keep all this information in your brain. Robert Paul Westman, who the trans shooter, identified as Robin, a woman. Well, he was the youngest of 3 children. His parents divorced in 2013 after more than 2 decades of marriage. Do you notice something else that's come up here? A broken home. Now, I want to stop there because this is another point to make. It is a matter of fact that children who grow up in broken homes, without a father or without a mother present, are more inclined, to get involved in crime or drug use or things like this. Now, is that saying that every person who grows up in a broken home is going to be a mass shooter? No, it's not saying that, you a-holes. Not you a-holes. I mean the Jin Psaki's of the world. So it's the same here. So how can we fix these things, right? How can we try and prevent these things from happening besides saying, let's pass more gun laws that don't work? I live in California, right? We have the strictest gun laws in the country. Everything the Democrats are calling for now in Minneapolis and elsewhere, we have all of it. Do you know that California leads the nation in mass shootings? There are more mass shootings in California than anywhere else in the country. But I thought all this stuff worked. It prevented mass shootings. So it's a fact. Get this out of your freaking brains, liberals. Guns are not the flipping problem. That's not the solution. There is cultural rot that has to be addressed. It is, everybody wants an easy fix. Like even the people out there, let's pretend they have good intentions, and they just really, I want my kids safe. And if we get rid of the guns and that does it, then I'm happy. Yeah, that would be an easy fix. You know what, guys? Let's just get in there and let's get rid of the Second Amendment. Let's all give up our guns like we're in communist, USSR. The government will tell us what to do. They'll control everything. There'll be no crime because they pass a law that says murder is illegal And once we say murder is illegal, there will be no murder left, right? Because that's how these laws work. If we pass more laws with guns, criminals aren't going to get guns because everybody obeys the law. No murder, there's no murders in America. Go after yourself. Live in reality. And I'm pissed. And I'm sorry. I don't love to get like angry like this on episodes. Sometimes it can be hard to listen to. This isn't really like my personality all the time. But when it comes to this, I cannot sit here and pretend like kumbaya, calm voice, whatever else, because I'm so sick of this crap. So anyway, society doesn't want to take the hard route, right? We need to encourage, the nuclear family. What do Democrat policies do? They disrupt and eradicate the nuclear family. That's not to say that every married couple is perfect either, that every kid who grows up in a nuclear family with married parents is going to turn out perfect either. But that should be the gold standard. That should be what you encourage and aspire to in society because you know that it works. While his immediate family kept a relatively private life, one relative, Bob Helleringer, a former Kentucky state representative and Robin's uncle, publicly expressed regret and anguish after the massacre. He admitted he barely knew Robin. So this is Robin's uncle, and here you go. Robin doesn't have a relationship with his uncle. I'm sick of this name, Robin. This is a boy, a man, Robert, a mentally ill, evil, trans person. So Robert, that's the name. I'm not going with Robin. This is Robert. Okay. Robert attended an Annunciation School and graduated from there in 2017. Afterward, he went on to Minnesota Transitions Charter School and later transferred to St. Thomas Academy. I mean, and this is so similar to what happened in Nashville. Aiden Hale, a transgender man formerly known as Audrey Hale, stormed into the Covenant School armed with rifles and a handgun. Now, somebody put something on here, DeAnd, mixed mental illness with psyche meds, hormone therapies, and children, and it's a disaster. That's exactly right. The point is, what DeAnd has said is we know, this is the thing, we know what the problems are. We know what the problems are. So why aren't we addressing them? Moral crisis. And so, the Democrats are going out of their way to apply Obama's golden rule to this the trans community out there. They're so persecuted. Yeah, Roscoe, I think it was male to female, brother. I'll look at the thing in a second. It was male to female. Somebody else can check too, but I honestly, the trans stuff confuses me so much, honestly. Like a trans man, a trans woman, anyway. Let me just play this Jen Psaki clip again. Let's finish the clip. I'll play the whole thing and won't interrupt.
Already out there about how the shooter was trans. You're going to see narratives about how the shooter appeared to be anti-Trump and anti-Semitic and clearly was in the midst of a mental health crisis. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. There are trans people all over the world. There are anti-Semitic people, unfortunately, all over the world. And people filled with plenty of political hate all over the world. And mental health issues are not unique to the United States. And yes, we should do more to address them. But it's also an issue all over the world. But this is the only country where shootings like this one happen this often. The United States not only has the highest rate of gun violence of any country in the world, it's become a leading cause of death for young.
Yeah, because no other country has a Democrat Party. That's why. But first, before I continue on, I got to do something. Are you and your partner struggling to conceive? You've heard me talk about this last week. If you took the COVID vaccine, there's cause for concern. You're not alone. A recent study led by Danish researcher Dr. Vibeke Manichi analyzed birth data from women aged 18 to 39 over a 2-year period starting in 2021. The findings suggest a significant decrease in birth rates among vaccinated women. Naomi's talked about this a ton, by the way. Naomi Wolf, that is, Dr. Wolf, with data indicating a reduction in egg count by nearly 60%. Since 2021, fertility rates have significantly declined in many regions around the world. The wellness company, though, has created the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox. It's crafted with 100% natural ingredients, specifically designed to help your body clear harmful spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support overall health. You can experience this formula that was approved by Dr. McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all. Head over to dailycloudhealth.com and use code DailyCloud to get 10% off plus free shipping. Spike Detox your body today. All right. All right. I guess I need to move pretty quick here. You know, it's just tough. You know, I got about 50 something minutes, I guess, to go. I mean, I guess we could technically go over for a little bit. Depends how many of you are sticking around with me. So anyway, there's Jen Psaki. You know, people are going to talk about this. Here is the actual mayor of Minneapolis. Now, what gets me, you have an obvious targeting of Christians, innocent children who are attending mass. And the left, let me say it this way. Well, let me try and come up with an analogy to really drive this point home. Let's say a MAGA. Now, I can't do it. I can't even do it because I don't even want to like bring this stuff into existence. So anyway, let's just stick with what actually happened. You have a transgender individual who is mentally ill, which is the same thing, who shoots up children, murders children while they're in mass. And the instinct of the Democrat mayor of Minneapolis and Democrats in the media is to defend transgender people. Do I have that right? What do you think they'd be doing if, like, I don't know, some white Christian came out and did it with a MAGA hat on? Now, hold on, everybody. This is not indicative of MAGA. This is a standalone incident. Everyone calm down about MAGA and Donald Trump. No, they could never say that because they've been spewing these lies about MAGA and everything else forever. And yet every time it's effectively one of their own that's carrying out these acts of violence. And by one of their own, I mean, it's these ideologies that they not only defend, but think that are healthy for people to have. So here we go. Let's play the mayor first. Here we go.
And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost.
I hope that guy can shut the F up. You piece of SHI garbage excrement. Kids were just slaughtered in a trend by somebody in the trans community. There is no, this is what pissed me off about Barack Obama too. There was no burning of mosques in this country by Christians. There was no danger posed to the Islam community because they were a special protected class, just like the trans class is protected in this country. It's gaslighting. Oh, I'm the problem because I'm sitting here talking about what happened with this shooter. Oh, you can't even talk about, don't even think about calling these people radical Islamists. You're attacking. Well, there's a problem with Islam, isn't there? No, it's not everybody in the religion, but there's a problem. There's a problem with trans people. You know what the problem with the trans people? You know what? It's because it's a mental illness. You know, this is the thing. These people aren't actually like trans. There may be a handful, and this is actually funny. This is kind of what the LGBTQ plus people did to gay people too. They hijacked the movement. So there probably are, and there certainly are, a handful of people throughout history in this country, very, very, very small percentage, it's an outlier, that are born and there's something effed up, and they do believe they're trapped in the wrong body, and they yearn to be something else, and they feel like a woman or whatever else. It's like some kid that's born and and at the age of 4, they're gay. Okay. Same thing I'm sure is true with the trans community. But now it's almost like a designer handbag. What the Democrats are saying is like, it's basically a way to show that you are an ideological ally of the left. That's what it's become. And it's also encouraged because once you're trans, man, you're really special. Nobody can come after you. You're persecuted. You're a victim. So it feeds into this entire ideology. Now, I don't care. There are people out there criticize me all day long. Oh, I'm under attack. No, they're attacking me. Oh my gosh, I'm a victim. Shut up. I don't care. So, this guy goes out and defends the trans community that's not even under attack, just like the Islamic community was not under attack in America, even though radical Islamist terrorists just murdered a bunch of Americans, like in San Bernardino, California, with those radical terrorists who went to a Christmas party for the health care company or whatever that the husband worked out, and they shot him up. All right, let's play another clip. Here he is on CNN.
When you talk about compassion, I don't want to tiptoe around the edge of this, but the shooter's name was in question, the gender of the shooter. No one's really sure what's going on there. 5 years ago it was Robert, then a name change to Robin. Okay. This is being seized in all corners, as you can imagine, in all sorts of ways. And you know that, Mayor. And perhaps that's why when you spoke about this so profoundly and powerfully as you are even here now, but when you spoke about this today publicly, you voiced concern for the transgender community, for the community overall. And obviously you chose to do that in that moment because you thought it was important. And I wanted to give you a chance to say why you felt it was important to do that in that moment.
Obviously, I've heard about the rhetoric and the narrative that is being pushed out, but here's the thing. Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common...
Okay, shut up. You people villainize MAGA, me, the people watching this show right now, 24/7, 365 days a year. You villainize us. And we're not out there committing acts of murder. And now you want to lecture us about what happened here. And, I want to bring up a point that Roscoe makes here. I don't know if he means that I offended him or whatever else, but the message on the screen, that he put up was as a person who's had mental health issues, has them actually. I'm offended. This is good versus evil, not sane versus insane. I want to address that because it brings up an important point. There are plenty of people that suffer from mental health issues and more because of technology, Instagram, all these things. These mental illnesses are developed because of what the media is putting out there all day, this constant stream of negativity. All of that contributes to mental illness. And some people are more resilient than others. It's genetic. And some people break. And so, yeah, it's true that not everybody with mental illnesses is going to go out and shoot up stuff either. That's not what I'm saying, but my problem is mental illness is not something that should be encouraged from the standpoint of, hey, that's really cool that you're suffering from mental illness. It's not cool. It's something that we should have compassion for, which is to say, hey, let's help people out. This could be me too that has a serious mental illness. How do I heal this person? How do I make this person whole? This is my brother. This is my sister. This is my neighbor. This is, an American citizen. And that's the attitude we should have. But when it comes to the trans community, which is, and this is the problem, nobody views the trans thing as a mental illness. Well, some do, but the left won't let you say it. I don't hate somebody if I point out that they have a mental illness. I don't hate somebody if I want to help somebody with their mental illness. That's compassion. If you're an alcoholic out there down in a bottle of Jack, a handle of Jack every day, and you're killing your body, you're killing your soul, you're killing your mind, you're numbing yourself. Is it compassionate to go and buy that person, Jack Daniels and deliver it to them while they're on a binger? Or is it compassionate to say, hey, man, You're killing yourself here. You don't have to live this way. I can help you. That's compassion. But this person goes on TV after a trans person, another trans person targets a Christian group, children, and kills them. And this person tells us he won't tolerate anybody like me, I guess, right now, villainizing the trans. I'm not villainizing the trans community. I want to help these people. You want to pump out as many of them as you can and wreak havoc on this country. We're the compassionate ones. Those of us who look at how you want to indoctrinate children and tell, somebody's son who's 4 years old to cut off their penis. We want to stop that. That's compassion. We want to protect and save these kids. That's compassion. We want to, I would have loved Robert, who succumbed to absolute evil here. Robert turned Robin. But you know what the mother did in this case? The mother affirmed this, who worked at a Christian school. I'm sorry, folks, if you're a Christian, it is impossible to support the trans agenda. And I'm so sick of being lectured by people who don't know anything about Christianity that bastardize it. Jesus was not, quote unquote, tolerant. Let me explain something to you. Jesus condemned sin. That doesn't mean he didn't love people. In fact, it was his love of mankind that made him call out those sins. He wanted us to live our best lives. He wanted us to live up to our purpose. He wanted us to fulfill the image of our Father, his Father. He wanted us to be happy. And that's why he called it out. Jesus wouldn't take this transgender situation and sit down and say, hey, that's so cool that you think that God put you in the wrong body. That's right. As a matter of fact, I'm Jesus. I'm going to go help you cut off your wee-wee. Yeah. No, that wouldn't happen. Insanity. But here we are, entertaining this bullcrap. So, I want to play this clip now of Trey Gowdy. I've noticed a trend. There are Republicans now who are just so tired of these shootings that they're willing to join the left. They think that's going to solve and prevent this. They're tired of like all of us, but they now want to move left on gun control. Listen to Trey Gowdy talk.
Our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is, how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? And the only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time or keep the weapons out of their hands. And so we're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. I mean, how many school shootings does it take before we're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out? It's always a young white male, almost always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female? Did any of y'all think that? I mean, there's been one school shooting involving a female.
It was in Tennessee.
One. Yeah, Tennessee. But other than that, it is usually.
Oh, yeah. Other than that one, like the biggest one, before this one, other than that one, it's always white male. Listen to this guy. Listen to Trey Gowdy. You got the mayor of Minneapolis where the shooter's Blake saying, this guy was a transgender shooter. Don't you dare even point out that he's a trans. Jen Psaki, you're going to hear people out there say this was a trans person. You're going to hear. Don't say that. You can't say that. You're villainizing. You got Trey Gowdy on there being like, hey, man, all these shooters are white. Look at all these white dudes. They're all white men. Look at them killing everyone. Are you villainized by this, by the way? Now, it has nothing to do with race. But anyway, actually, there is a takeaway from all these people being like, white guys. It's that they seem to be susceptible to the Democrats' propaganda. But anyway, there's Gowdy there. So we're all tired of this. We want to solve this. The only way to fix this is to keep the hands out of the guns or whatever else. Look, we know how to solve this, but it's not easy. We've had guns in this country since our founding. The left has plenty of lies about this and that and whatever. But the point is, when my father was going to school, you had a shotgun rack on your truck and you showed up with a shotgun on the back. These mass shootings are increasing, despite the fact that the one constant is what? Guns, Second Amendment. And as a matter of fact, the more that the Second Amendment has been limited, the more the efforts, the greater the efforts have been to, kind of take that right away by requiring more, instituting more laws to try and solve these things. Guess what? Is it solving the mass shooting problem? It's not. So if you have a scientific mind, even if you're a rational person, you have to look at that and say, look, we tried that. It's not working. The problem is different. Why are mass shootings happening like this? Why are they going up? Look at what our society looks like today. Look at what it supposedly values. Nothing. And these people are targeting what? Christian churches. I can't emphasize this enough. Because Christianity imposes values. Christianity imposes morals on a population. And in fact, our country was built on those very morals and ethics. And so it's anarchy. All of this is pushing back against Christianity, against our founding, against who we were. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. I'll probably talk about this more later. Let me get into a couple other stories here. But first, one more thing. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's a single ingredient formula. It doesn't have fillers, no additives, no artificial sweeteners. This is something I use. It is completely flavorless. Its peptide formula makes it bioavailable. That means that it doesn't clump. It absorbs more easily, and that's true. And you can add it to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. I've done it in coffee and smoothies mainly. 4 million jars have been sold, 1 million happy customers. Native Path is a trusted choice. They offer an 800 number for any questions about usage. That person even speaks English. You can join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/Daily Clout and start your transformation today. That is getnativepath.com/Daily Clout. I'll just briefly tell you about John Bolton. I don't think people realize this. So, John Bolton, let me just actually play John Bolton here, this clip. Listen to him. This is him celebrating the raid of Mar-a-Lago.
It's maybe of the highest level of sensitivity, or they may not. We just don't know. So we could speculate all night here. I'd prefer that the Justice Department move as rapidly as possible as they can through this in order that as much as can be made and would be made public is done as quickly as we can, because otherwise the department is left out there twisting in the wind, to use a Watergate phrase, and it doesn't have adequate defenses against the political onslaught of Donald Trump.
So he totally supports the raid of Mar-a-Lago. It can't happen fast enough, move swiftly and everything else, because he's got classified documents. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. Of course, just like Adam Schiff, who's probably guilty of mortgage fraud, Letitia James, mortgage fraud, the people that were accusing Donald Trump of being a criminal, that wanted him persecuted, they wanted to politicize the Justice Department and use it to weaponize it against the American people and their political enemies. Well, of course, they're all criminals, not just because they were committing crimes in that, but specifically in their personal lives. They have no respect for the rule of law. So John Bolton, he wrote this book. Let me see if I have it here, just so I get some of these facts right. I wrote about it on my Substack, drewallen.substack.com. Get over there and subscribe if you haven't yet. I will be posting stuff there regularly. I haven't lately because I've been finishing up this book on Trump-Russia collusion. Anyway, drewallen.substack.com. So John Bolton was accused in 2020 of publishing classified information in a memoir he wrote called The Room Where It Happened. And the Justice Department argued that he rushed the book to press. He didn't go through the mandatory pre-publication review process. You have to make sure that this is approved. It doesn't have classified information. He didn't do that. He published it anyway. And so you actually had the Justice Department opening a criminal inquiry into Bolton during the Trump years, which explains also why Bolton hates Trump so much. So they opened this investigation and they discovered that he was sending classified emails to family members, like Clinton, in terms of a non-government, non-secure server. Just like I got a Gmail account and I'm sending classified documents. Well, the Trump administration was investigating that. Joe Biden came in and shut that investigation down. So Donald Trump has reopened that investigation, and they have now determined that, in fact, classified emails were sent from John Bolton to family members, and those were intercepted by foreign adversaries. John Bolton. Man, isn't it mind-blowing? These people. All right, let's do Cracker Barrel for the last few minutes here. If you have any questions, post them on the screen. I'll try and get to them at the very end. So Cracker Barrel unveiled this new logo just like less than a week ago. And there was great public outcry. And now they are scrapping the new logo that people didn't like. But we got to back up. I want to start and revisit. I want to revisit this with what happened. So about a year ago, they got this new CEO, I think 2023, a couple years back. And they announced this big revamp. They're going to evolve the restaurant. And it was going to be this 3-year plan. Well, 1 year into the plan, there was all this pushback. What was the Cracker Barrel revamp plan? And by the way, the CEO here, her name is Julie Fells Massino. And there's a big lesson in this. But look, I grew up in Texas, in the Dallas area. I'm familiar with Cracker Barrel. I grew up going to Cracker Barrel. And I want to say something in transparency. I'm not a Cracker Barrel person anymore. Okay? I got too bougie. I'm conservative, but I lived in California too long. I live in Napa Valley. My wife is a chef. All right? So I'm just not a Cracker Barrel guy. And that's fine. That's fine. I was a Cracker Barrel person at one point, back when I would go to Macaroni Grill and all those chains. And then I just got spoiled. I got too interested in my health. I don't like eating out at places like that anymore, these big chains. That's not to say you shouldn't or can't. That's just where I am. That's my own evolution over time, right? But Cracker Barrel, if you don't know, it's very specific. The branding actually was quite good. It was inspired by these old country stores, so they filled it with antiques. Every store was kind of like being in a museum. It was a little cluttered. And, what was central to Cracker Barrel in that logo, too, I don't have the picture of it to pull up, but it was Uncle Herschel, who we called the old timer. He's the guy sitting down, leaning his arm on the Cracker Barrel, the barrel. He was even, I think that on the menu, there was even like Uncle Herschel's, eggs, Uncle Herschel's plate or something, bacon, eggs, whatever. So he was a fixture, the old timer, Uncle Herschel. So this CEO comes in and gets rid of all of it. They basically just like cleansed it of its identity. And you could see it in the logo. I mean, it's reflected in the logo. They got rid of everything. It's just a Cracker Barrel. Oh, we kept some of the colors. But look, so they went into these stores. They started renovating a year ago, and they got to like 40 of them. They painted the walls white. They put in modern lighting fixtures. They took out the antiques effectively. And this was their shtick. This was their identity. And they're getting all this negative feedback over the course of the last year as they're doing these renovations. But the CEO in Cracker Barrel, they they refused to address reality. So they didn't care what the customers thought. They were doing these renovations, and the feedback they were getting was like, we don't like this, but they pressed on anyway. And this is where the lesson comes in that I'm going to convey to you. This CEO at Cracker Barrel had nothing in common with people who actually eat at Cracker Barrel. And she did not care to get to know these people. And I am telling you, because this CEO's mentality, like the left, I don't know if she's a Democrat, probably, but it's an attitude of elitism. So that's why I say I'm not a Cracker Barrel person anymore. But if I were to go and take over Cracker Barrel, I wouldn't make it like, I don't even go here. I've never been to the French Laundry, but I'm just using the most expensive restaurant that's famous right here in Napa Valley, French Laundry. I wouldn't go in as CEO as Cracker Barrel and say, you know, this doesn't fit what I like because I live in the Napa Valley. I like expensive fine dining. I like caviar. I like, you know, whatever, lobster. I wouldn't go in and force that on the people that eat at Cracker Barrel. But this is the takeaway from this. They didn't care what the customers thought. Because in their opinion, the customer, the person that eats at Cracker Barrel, was a bunch of retards. A bunch of lowbrow, poor people. And their mentality is, we don't care what you like. You shouldn't like this, and you should like what we're going to give you. You're going to like this because we're superior to you. It's very like communist, like you will own nothing and be happy, right? We're going to change everything about Cracker Barrel because we know better, and you're going to like it. But they didn't like it. And here's the response, like when they were complaining about the renovations. You know, as with any change, we recognize that there may be a vocal minority who feel differently. However, the strong performance of these locations affirms that we are moving in the right direction. They don't live in reality. They don't want to live in reality. So Cracker Barrel was Southern country charm. And they got this new campaign slogan, all the more. I don't even know what the HE double hockey sticks that mean. What does that mean? All the more. I don't know what that means. It's like the Jaguar thing. I don't even remember what the slogan was, but it meant nothing. And like liberals and Democrats, like they mean nothing, just vapid phrases. So they got rid of Uncle Herschel. I mean, it's like updating Disney and you get rid of the castle in the beginning. How do you do that? So anyway, this CEO, Julie Fells Massino, she previously served as president of Taco Bell and Mattel before being tapped to head Cracker Barrel. She held senior roles at Sprinkles Cupcakes and Starbucks. Here's what she said about what Cracker Barrel meant to her in June 2025, not long ago. There's something here. This is a great place where people connect. People were there with their families. They were there with their friends. I mean, imagine this is your takeaway. There's a restaurant, right? And your observation is there are people here eating in the restaurant. Yeah, there are people in this restaurant with their friends. There are people in this restaurant with their families. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Anyway, she goes on, you know, and everybody I talked to in the journey when I was evaluating the opportunity, everybody had such affinity for the brand. They loved the brand. Like everybody has an origin story for Cracker Barrel. So then what does the CEO do? People love the brand, so she completely destroys the brand. She scraps the new logo. She goes in and said, no antiques. Let's modernize the place. Let's get rid of the Southern country charm. These are leftists. You know, they invent problems. They create problems. The problem with Cracker Barrel was not its quote-unquote identity. Maybe some of the food sucked. I don't know. Maybe it needed some updates. Maybe there were things here and there. But the solution wasn't to go in and make it modern. It's Cracker Barrel. And you want to turn it into, like, what? So this happened to me with Marc Jacobs. So I lived in Italy 2 years. I opened the first Marc Jacobs store in Italy. It was in Milan. Ended up managing stores in West Hollywood in California as well, a men's store there. I worked in the stores in New York at times as well. So this was me. I did this for many years, on and off, actually, as a store manager. And Marc Jacobs, when I started, was very prosperous. I mean, I opened a store in Milan. Obviously, it was doing quite well. And then, you know, fast forward, you know, a little less than a decade, and they bring in some new CEO. They got rid of the president. I'm not going to get into all that sort of stuff, but they brought in a new CEO that came from some other fashion brand. And he just didn't like Marc Jacobs. Like, he wanted it to be different. He didn't take time to understand who our customer was. He didn't ever appreciate the brand. And I'm talking specifically the Marc by Marc Jacobs brand, the kind of secondary brand that still had $1,000 coats, but also had affordable things. And he came in like an arrogant SOB, and he just changed everything. And I could see it happen day by day. Customers come in and say, what happened to this place? This isn't the place that I used to come to. I don't even recognize it anymore. Well, the CEO thinks that it should be more like Chanel. That wasn't the Marc Jacobs identity. So this person, too, isn't smart. She's making $6 million a year, by the way. CEO class. They're like the government bureaucrats. They just stay in there forever. But that's the takeaway. It's the mentality of the CEO class, like this person. They're elitists. They don't care what you like. They acknowledge you like it, and they come in and they want to change it. And when you push back, they say, oh, it's a vocal minority that's pushing back. This is the problem even with the mass shooting. Refusal to address reality, what the actual problem is. Yeah, Roscoe. Vocal minority equals everybody. That's right. Code for everybody. But anyway, look, this is we hit an hour here. Man, I love being with you guys. One of these days, I'm telling you, one of these days, this show will take over my life, and we will do this show 5 days a week. I got to have your support. I don't need you to give me money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not a grifter. But I've got to get to a place where I can make that happen. Right now, obviously that can't happen, but it will with your support and you're sharing the show and you're following and keeping up with the Drew Allen Show. But man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being with me today. God bless you all truly. Pray for this country. Pray for this country. Pray for our leaders. Pray for one another. Pray for these families. The left is mocking us Christians who want to pray. Prayer is important, and this country could use prayer. And those people that are mocking Christianity should too. But we will pray for this nation. God bless you all. This is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. Until next time.